Welcome back to Karuna, Satori Basic, everybody. Karuna here, and today's video was actually supposed to be my addiction and recovery story, inspired by Peter Monn, although September is the Addiction and Recovery Awareness Month. I have been clean from any drugs besides methadone, unfortunately, and that is one thing that is a very argumentative subject is, are we truly clean if we're still on a opiate blocker, aka methadone, Suboxone, Subutex, things like that. Today, the reason I didn't film it is because I just filmed a 40-minute inaudible whispering and tapping on aesthetic makeup items, and I was going to film the addiction and recovery video after that, which is right now, but my story is so long that I'm actually going to go home tonight and list my timeline. But I still wanted to talk about some serious dyslexia. I wanted to talk about some serious things with you guys today, especially something that relates to more people than not, both male, female, any identification of gender identity. It affects everybody, unfortunately. And trigger warning, this whole video is basically going to be about sexual assault, rape, molestation, everything along those lines. So if you are very triggered, as I didn't give a warning in my ASMR video the other day talking about that subject, which I truly apologize, I will make sure in the future to give a warning to you guys. As somebody all their lives who has suffered from sexual assault, has severe sexual problems and trauma, I just kind of freely talk about it because my head is so fucked up pretty much that sorry, I'm tightening my mic because I turned it off, but so yeah, I'm not the type of person to say I have problems. I'm really not. When I was younger, my grandfather died. I mentioned this in my other video, and my Aunt Eleanor, my grandmother, has like 6 or 5 sisters or some cluster of them. And they came over, and I remember everybody was crying, and my Aunt Eleanor looked me in the face, and I was a little girl, she's like, things are never as bad as people make them out to be. And from then on, I literally was just like, this can't be as bad as everybody's making it out to be. So I'm just going to get to the main psychological debate here of what I'm trying to get out to you guys. There is a new study. So for me, I absolutely love BDSM, bondage, dominance, submission, masochism, forgive my ignorance with the last pronunciation of the word. I absolutely love dominance, I love spanking, I love being a sub, I love being a dom, I love being a little, I love being a daddy, whatever, mommy, whatever you want to call it. Now, the thing is with the whole spanking thing, and now hear me out, this is just a study, this is not what I truly believe, although it does make a lot of sense. This is not sexual assault. This is just natural spanking, discipline and things like that. When I was little, my father and my mother spanked me. I never got spanked as much as my brother did, but they, pulled down my pants bare ass and spanked me, and that would be the punishment that I would get in very severe circumstances. My parents never hit me. They never put their hands on me. My father slapped me once, and trust me, it was a huge thing from then on out. Like, God forbid, he didn't even raise his voice at me anymore. Spanking was just something that I think they tried when they were little, or whenever we were younger and things like that. So now the thing is I grew up liking it. You know what I mean? Like, and another thing, I'm gonna be very honest with you guys here, talking about like current sexual endeavors and things like that. If you guys want actual sex, things like that, go to my Patreon account. Don't come here for this. This is something very serious that I'm just relating different subjects to. Now, the study here is any child who has been exposed to any kind of sexual trauma or nakedness, things like that, like the situation going on with a nude body part, you can just tell by the natural body hormones your body releases. I was also spanked when I was molested, so that's probably where it came from as well. I have a very strong fetish sexually regarding, I don't want to like seem weird, but it's like the whole, this is such a weird personal video, and I'm very open with my sexuality. I'm very open with things like this, but I'm trying to explain my past and stuff. So when I was molested, one thing the guy would do is he would put himself on me with his clothes on, it's dry humping, that's what it's called. But growing up, And he would do that all the time, and I hated it. And I'd always say stop. But I was young, and I didn't understand those things. Do you know what I mean? Fast forward into adult life now, and my sexual fetish is the dry thing. Like, it's one of them. And the study here is any child exposed to those things when they're younger is more likely to enjoy it when they're older. So the spanking that I absolutely could not fucking stand when I was younger, God forbid, oh my God, we were like screaming, running around. My parents would have to catch us. They were like, no way. But yeah, so I mean, I couldn't stand that, and I couldn't stand being molested. So I'm going to tell my story, but that's an interesting subject I'd like to talk to you guys about. What do you think about that? For example, any child who is exposed to touching a certain way is, enjoys it when they're older. And it's a very, very shameful thing. I mean, trust me, I'm not ashamed any longer because I am slowly understanding it. But I'm saying, what do you guys think? Are you ashamed because this maybe happened to you when you were little and then now you enjoy that act? I'm not saying the actual situation, but it's just a study. This is nothing about me. This is nothing about anything. God, don't come on my comments and say, you actually relate to that. It's like, no. I'm just trying to talk to you guys and explain how I feel in this subject. So I'm excited to hear. Okay, so let's talk about my sexual past and my story and how I got over it and acknowledged it and realized that, well, first things first, I never got over it. I actually just came into it about 2 years ago that I realized that I actually was severely traumatized when I was younger as a child. So let's just get into the story. I talk way too long. We're 7 minutes in, and I've got places to go and people I don't need to see. So when I was, now here's the issue, the timeline here. I say this in every video. I can't tell if I was 9. I can't tell if I was 11. My mother, she even doesn't know. Okay, so when I was a little girl, my parents worked full-time, mother, father. Brother was in school. I didn't go to school yet. This was, well, yeah, I take that back. I was in like 3rd, 4th grade. This just ended around when I entered 3rd grade, so help me out with the age here. I don't fucking know. I would always go to my grandmother's house every single day. If it wasn't my nun lived behind me, and that was my father's mother. My baba lived right down the street, and that was my mother's mom. So we would alternate between grandmothers each day whenever I'd go get babysat. So during the summer months, his name is Jared. I'm going to be public on his name. His name was Jared Castania. He is in prison now for raping and attempting to murder a pregnant woman. So he's in prison, and I'm very grateful for that. He's always been troubled. He was actually sent to live with his grandparents who lived below my baba and my pap. So I would go over to be babysat every day, and I'm assuming we were kind of close in age because I don't know why my grandparents would let me hang out with somebody older than me. But he was still 1 or 2 years or 3 years older than me. He was definitely of age. I remember and I don't of how it kind of started, but basically we would always go through walks in the woods. There's a lot of things that I've blocked out, and I have a story about that later regarding a family member of mine too. So, which I ask not to talk about him all the time, and I think I figured out why, but I would never accuse somebody of something that didn't happen. So let's continue with the story. Spit everywhere. So Jared and I would go up in the woods in the summertime and take walks. And I remember as it kind of just eased into it, there would always be this open patch of woods. And Jared would always look at me and be like, so do you know what having a boyfriend is like? Do you know what having a girlfriend is like? And I would say no. But back then I was severely bullied in regards to my looks and the way that I dressed. I had 2 sets of teeth when I was born, so as I grew up, I had like 9 extra teeth on my palate, and I remember I still had them whenever Jared was hanging out with me, and I wore these big glasses, and it was just all fucked, and so I was made fun of a lot, so I really enjoyed the validation from others, and we were in the woods, and he was like, do you want to be my girlfriend, things like that. It kind of eased its way in that way, and I said, sure, I would love to have a boyfriend, but his justification of that was, well, the only thing is it's fine to have a girlfriend, or it's fine for me to have a girlfriend, but I also have 3 others. And he would always tell me about their boobs and the size of it, and just the way that they looked and how skinny they were. And I'd sit there and in my head I'm thinking, at least I have a boyfriend. At least I have somebody who wants to, you know, be around me and walk with me and things like that. But then that turned into touching, and I'll never forget. Definitely wasn't the first time. I blocked that out so far down I can't find it. I don't know. I don't remember. But I remember one time, and specifically, he would always put himself upon me and go and stuff like that. And I would be like, you know, Jared, I gotta get down to my grandma's, or Jared, because it's like the act is so, you know, not talked about, so taboo, because you're a fucking child and you're not supposed to be exposed to that until you're way older. And I understand that now. And unfortunately, I was being exposed to it when I was like 9, 10, 11. I'm not sure. So it was in that range though. So I'll never forget he started doing that. And in my head, I was like, he wants to do this to me because he wants to be my boyfriend. He likes me, you know what I mean? He would always say that he loved me and things like that. I'd say I love him too. And we'd leave the woods, but one day, I mean, it progressively got worse. I lost my anal virginity to him when I was a little girl. I remember he literally would, and this is a very personal story, and I'm explaining this to you because you guys are very important to me, and I feel like maybe this could help you as well. I don't need to go into details the way that I am, but I feel like maybe explaining the things that, you know, people do to little fucking kids needs to be stopped, and maybe it'll spread some awareness. I'm not sure, because it goes along with what happened when he was caught. So when that happened, I remember I was a little girl, so it was very painful, and I said, I'm done, I want to go, I want to go. And I started screaming, and he'd wrap his hand around my mouth. And one time he actually brought do you guys know those long metal scissors with like the big holes on top? Like, he brought those, and I remember he opened them and he put his middle finger and like hooked himself in. He would have cut himself if he would have done it. And he put the scissors up to my neck, and he was like, you know, if you keep screaming, I'm gonna kill you, and blah blah blah, and things like that. So this went on for 2 summers. I remember specifically because I remember he was going to school, and he went to, I'm not going to say where, you guys know where I live already, but he went to like the richer school, like in the richer area, because that's where we all lived. But for some reason I went to the shitty school. Like, my mom was just like, fuck it, like, I'm not paying these taxes. No, but so even though I was in the same county. So yeah, and I was molested, and it went on. And then finally, how he got caught, and this would go on daily, man. Like, every day he'd come to my grandmother's door and be like, let's go to the woods, let's go to the woods, let's go to the woods, for like 2 fucking years. And I never lost my original virginity. Like, he never entered me vaginally. It was only the other way. And I don't know what his justification was. And I use the word justification a lot because, and that means basically he's trying to validate the situation. He's trying to make it as if it was okay. And I remember him saying, oh my God, see, I just scratched my skin and I turned like a bright red beet. But, so, I don't know, the last summer that it was 2 years, so it was right whenever summer was starting again, and I was in my swimming pool, and the way that our house was is my mother's room, which had the computer in it, which my brother was always in, had a window directly on the wall, and if you look out the window you can see the swimming pool, so everything was pretty close. So it was my bubba, my mother's mother, the one who lived next to Jared and his grandparents, and I was in the swimming pool, and I don't know, like, I just felt like I had to tell somebody. I don't know why, because in my head I'm thinking, it's fine, he loves me, he wants me. But even though towards the end he would come in and be like, you're not doing what you're supposed to, and my girlfriend will always have bigger boobs than you, and my girlfriend's always prettier than you, but he'd still be like, but I still want you to be my girlfriend, and stuff like that. So I was slapping around in the water, and I was like, I need to tell somebody, like, I just need to tell somebody. I don't know. And I kind of made it like I was sad purposefully, which I was. I was very damaged. Like, what the fuck? What the fuck? Like, literally. But I didn't know that psychologically. Like, I didn't know that mentally that was happening to me. I just knew that, all my friends are not experiencing this, right? So anyway, my bubba's in the pool with me, and she's walking around in her swimsuit. She's too cold to be in the water. Like, I'm slapping, and she's like, what is wrong? And I was like, I don't like Jared anymore. And she's like, why? And I was like, I don't want to hang out with him anymore. And I was like, he kisses me and he puts his thing in me. And oh my God. My Bubba's face was just like dead ass, like straight, like she, I don't know. Okay, in my opinion, and you'll see why I was explaining all this in detail, is because I explained it in detail to her as a child would explain something like that to an adult. And she's over there like dead mouth open, like she was like, she didn't know what to do, right? And this is where I kind of resent my family for this. And trust me, my mother, it was a different time. It was early 2000s, like 90s, like it was a very early time. And I can't blame them because they, but anyway, so we got out of the pool and I was like, please don't tell anybody, Bubba, please, please, please don't tell anybody. I just don't want to see him anymore. So my brother heard all of it, like he's in the fucking window. He hears all of it and goes and calls my mother. My mother comes home from work. It's this huge fucking ordeal. And I remember that night in bed, I don't remember the rest of the day. I just remember laying in bed the night that they found out, and my mother just kept sitting there and she was crying and she was like, it's not your fault. It's like in Family Guy where they're like, it's not your fault, in that movie or whatever. I'm not trying to make a joke out of this. It's just I always try to take serious issues and laugh at them. But yeah, she was like, it's not your fault. It's not your fault. And she kept petting my forehead and I was like, what are you talking? Like in my head, I'm like, what is this? And why is this so big? Like I was like, I knew that this was kind of not right to do. Right? So from then on out, I didn't go to my grandmother's. I'm sorry, you guys know that I put foundation on in the night and I like scratch it off, but because of the methadone. But I'm like literally like I couldn't see Jared anymore. And I remember, and I'll explain in a minute, but I remember from then on out, like I would see him and I would look for him, and I remember starting 3rd grade and I would get made fun of, and I was like, Jared didn't make fun of me. He wanted to touch me. And that is what started my severe sexual like issues, like for the rest of my fucking natural born life up until now. All I do excuse me, like all the time everything is somehow related to sex, and I hate sex. I came into orgasms very, very early after that because of that shit, and it's shameful and it's sad and it's bad and it fucking sucks. Because not only did nothing happen, in fact, 3 or 4 months later, my brother started hanging out with Jared, and that is why I don't talk about my brother. That is why I have nothing to do with my brother. My brother is nobody in my life. I wish him the best. He has a lot of problems. You guys know I talked about him in the past, but I ultimately do not want anything to do with him. He brought Jared into the house while I was taking a bath. It was in the daytime and we were done swimming, and I would get into the bathtub to, like, you know what I mean, wash up and not be all like chlorine-y for the rest of the day. And I remember I had the door open and in comes around the corner Jared by himself in the bathtub staring at me, and I'm just like, I started screaming bloody murder. Although I wanted to see him deep down, everybody knew, like, they were just like, no, like, you were never seeing this man again. There was no fucking way, like, no way. So they literally were like, my mom and dad ran in, they dragged him out, they dragged my brother out, they were like, get the fuck out of here, blah, blah, blah. But why would he do that, you know? And not only did that happen, my parents chose not to do anything about it. Nothing happened. There were no charges pressed, there were no reports to the police. I remember my grandma talked to his grandma, and that was it. And I still saw him all the time after that. And I didn't get any counseling for that, so I still didn't know whether or not it was okay. And again, it was a different time, and my mother said the same thing, like my father said it too when I grew up. It was just a different time. That stuff wasn't brought up in the media like it is now. That stuff wasn't, you know, happening and stuff like that. And from then on out, sexual things would happen to me, and you know, it's like I'd intentionally go looking for it. And you know, I was molested before I had my interest in girls, and when I was little, I'd kiss girls, and like very little before I was molested, I'd have experiences with girls where we would play Titanic, and it was all wrong, you know, it was all fucking wrong, and it's sad, and it really is, and because not only did it happen then, you know, you grow up and then you actually get molested for 2 fucking years, and you realize that in your head you're starting to come into your sexuality like a year or so after, and you're starting to feel those good feelings, and you're like, I want this, like, I want to feel this way. So I remember I had 3 experiences with girls after that, and we were so young, like, we were each other's age, obviously, like, but we were so fucking young, and I was really enjoying those experiences with girls. Like, it was experimenting, you know, but it's like in the back of my head, it's like I was still looking for what Jared did to me, to do with these girls, and it was wrong. And I'm not saying I did anything to them, it's just like, I'm like, why aren't they doing what he's doing, even though they're females, but why aren't they, you know, wanting me to be their girlfriend and boyfriend? Like, why aren't they wanting to touch me like he did, and stuff like that? And it's fucked up, and it's wrong, and I didn't know that. And so fast forward, when I was 14 years old, I had my very, very first boyfriend. And he knows who he is. He is the most incredible. We don't get along anymore because we had this fight over, like, Donald Trump. I can't stand politics. Please don't ever talk to me about politics. I don't even know what a liberal is. I don't care. I don't want to care. I don't want to know. I mean, I know what a liberal, but you know what I mean. I don't want to talk about politics. So when I was 14, I got my first boyfriend, and I remember I would always, in my head, think about sex. Like, it would always just be there. I was just like, okay, are we going to have sex? Should I have sex with him? Should I do this? Sex, 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 sex. It's fucking sad. Literally, he was so kind, he was so gentle and so loving to me. And, you know, I told him about what happened, and he was there for me, and he was like, we will not do it unless you absolutely want to. But I found myself thinking about it all the time, and I would get, you know, emotions or whatever, and it was all the time. It was like an addiction, man. And so when I finally lost my virginity, as much as I respect him and he respects me, I hated it. I could not stand it. I did not have those feelings whatsoever. I had a severe, severe amount of body dysmorphia, extreme self-esteem. I was constantly made fun of after that in elementary school and middle school. Fat, you're fat. I weighed, like, I was pudgy when I was little. Like, I had this double chin that was like this all the time. Like, it was so bad. So, but I wanted to constantly please the person I was with, because I wanted them to look at me, and I wanted them to touch me, and I wanted them to say they loved me like Jared did when I was a little girl. And this went on with different partners throughout my childhood, and I am not ashamed anymore to say that I went through this, and there were reasons for this, but I was always looking for boyfriends, and I was constantly chasing the next person to tell me that they wanted me to be their girlfriend, that they wanted to touch me, that they thought I was pretty and skinny and not ugly. And I always chased those feelings that I felt whenever I was being molested, because it was a feeling of, although this is wrong, they still want me. And the mix of bullying, of, you know, emotional self-esteem, of things like that, and then the sexual trauma being put together, created a huge thing in my head. So here we are, I'm about, what now, like 17, 18 years old, and the drug addiction starts, and that's where tomorrow comes. And I don't know why I started doing drugs, honestly. My parents divorced, like, I could tell you guys fucking stories, and it always seems like a big, huge fucking pity party when it's not. It's just my past, and I'm trying to be open, because I'm trying to tell you, if you have any similar situations like this, it is okay, and you were severely fucking damaged, and I'm so sorry if nobody got you help, because they should have got me help. And I think maybe if they would have got me help, I would have learned that it wasn't okay to feel that way, and it wasn't okay to constantly fucking chase after men and women and want to be touched, and because that's what I thought love was. That's what I was told love was, is being sexually touched. So I constantly, throughout my teenage years, early adult years, sleeping with multiple partners, doing horrible fucking things and horrible acts because I thought it was okay. I was told it was okay, and nobody did anything besides keep him away from me to teach me that maybe this wasn't fucking okay. So I'm very blessed to this day. I didn't contract anything. Both of my kids were born healthy. due to the drug addiction and stuff like that, because that does correlate with why. I never really figured out the real reason why I started doing drugs, but thinking now, it's like maybe that was why. Because the emotional damage of rejection constantly, because that is what relationship I would look for, and what I was taught to look for in a way, is a man who would just basically fuck me and dump me and then talk badly about me afterwards. So you're constantly chasing the love. And that is one thing about the guy I lost my virginity to, is he knew. I am so, literally, look at this. Like, I'm, you know, he was like, this is not love. Like, that is not what love is constantly chasing this. He's like, trust me, I appreciate the gestures, but this is not what love is. And I was like, oh, fuck if you don't know that. And just the constant need for validation and the constant need for love that wasn't real love. It was just me being taken advantage of. So I grow up and I get involved in drugs, and it just continues. And again, I'm very blessed that I did not get any diseases, or, you know, I didn't get killed or murdered, because mixed drug addiction with lack of self-esteem, with need for drugs and need for money, and my exes, I would go, you know, the exes that would take advantage of me and leave when I was on drugs, they were on drugs too. So, hey, whore, you want some pills? Come with me. And so for my whole life, up until about like 2 years ago, well, maybe like about 2 months ago, well, not that early, but you'll see what I mean. And all this whole time, with my whole need for validation and that need for love, I've never had an orgasm in my whole life since I was a little girl. It all stopped. It just all stopped for me. Sex was a completely warped thing for me. So when I was 18 years old, another thing is, I was raped when I was 18. It was by a man named Bob Himes. He was not charged. He was not put in jail, even though the rape test kit came back positive. It was a week before my 18th birthday. I was over at a friend's house, and he was my friend's boyfriend's father-in-law. He worked for him at a construction company, and he would hang out. So a week before my 18th birthday, he came over. I remember he was 55 at the time, or 53. Forgive my ignorance, I'm not sure, 53 or 55, because it was literally spoken about. You know what? I take that all back. He was 48. He was 48 years old. The reason I know that now is because I'm thinking my dad died when he was 55, and then 53 I'm thinking of a neighbor. So anyway, he came over a week before my 18th birthday, and I remember him sitting with me, and we were on I just opened up my third eye, and like big huge conspiracy theorist, and I'm like, the Masons, the fucking Masons. And I remember Bob was like, I know about the Masons, and I was like, no you don't. And he's like, the Masonic Temple downtown. He's like, would you want to see it sometime? And I was like, yeah. My heart starts racing when I talk about this stuff, because it's been a while since I've actually sat on camera and talked to somebody about this, even though. But yeah, I was like, I would love to see it sometime. And he was like, well, we have to wait at least a week. And I'm thinking, why? He had this plan before it fucking started. And, I was like, he said something about they run their temple parties or something every like Friday. So next Friday it was my birthday. It was my 18th birthday. So that night, he was like, you're a very old soul. You seem very sweet. But he wasn't being weird. It was like he was being weird, but he planned it all. I don't know. So fast forward to then. It was on the night of my 18th birthday. It was actually my 17th birthday. But he was like, I'll meet you at midnight. So I remember we went to Sheetz. Sheetz is a gas station near where I live. My friend, her boyfriend was gone, and then Bob met us at the Sheetz in his truck. And I remember getting an Arnold Palmer tea, a bag of Cheetos, I believe, and 2 lottery tickets, and a pack of cigarettes, because I was legal. So Bob and I drove off, and, you know, actually through the whole night, nothing weird happened at all. Honestly, nothing. Like, he didn't mention not one negative thing, not one sexual thing, nothing. I am telling you this right now. Like, that's the weird thing. So but the weird thing is that he didn't even take me to the Masonic Temple. He drove me around my town and told me about, like, how he grew up, and about different, like, disco places that used to be around our town, and We drove past the Masonic Temple twice, and I remember I was like, are we going in here? And he's like, well, here, we'll drive around it. And then finally, towards the end of the night, I look like I have given myself a sunburn scratching right here. And these are all swatches. I just look like a mess. So we're driving around. He drove around the Masonic Temple one time, and he was like, yeah, there's 13 windows, 13 this, 13 that, the number 13. And it turns out, now that I know all this stuff, that the Masons aren't even the people to be worried about. Like, they have an incredible little society going on there, but that's a whole different thing. Blood and bones, whatever. So finally, the night's ending. It's literally like 2:33 in the morning, and I'm just like, okay, I need to go home. So he drives the fucking longest humanly way possible towards my house. And turns out he lived like right near me, like where, okay, so my dad and mom were divorced at that time. I was living with my mom. Or no, I'm sorry, I was living with my dad. So we're driving, and I remember like I had to piss. I drank that whole Arnold Palmer tea, had to pee so bad, and like there was a gas station, so I'm like, can you go to the gas station? It was called Stems. And he's like, well, he's like, we're almost to your house, right? Because he had the address. We're driving down the road, and all of a sudden a fucking cop starts following the car, right? This all could have been prevented if he just would have fucking pulled the car over. Like, please. It's 3 a.m. An 18-year-old little girl is in this man's, like, beat-up pickup truck. We got an old 48-year-old man in the passenger seat going real slow. And he's like, it's okay, it's okay. My house is right up here. And he's like, we'll just pull in the driveway. And in my head, I'm not thinking, why does it matter if I'm in his truck? Why does it fucking matter? Honestly, I'm thinking that. Like, why does it fucking matter? So he pulls in his driveway. He lived in this area. You don't understand how bad you have his name, but he lived in this cul-de-sac almost. It was his house just in the back road. And we pull in, and I have to piss so bad, and I notice he has this, like, side house, and I'm thinking, oh shit, maybe he has a bathroom in there. I have literally destroyed. And I remember I was like, please let me pee, because the cop drove by, and I was like, can we leave now? Can we go? I was like, can I please piss? And he was like, yeah. He's like, but I have a wife and kids inside, and they're sleeping, so please be very quiet. He's like, you can use the pole house, which was the building I seen. So we get out of the truck. I get out of the truck first, and then he gets out, and I'm thinking, why is he getting out? But nothing crossed my fucking mind, because he literally did not, you know what I mean, make any kind of sexual innuendo. No moves, nothing. There was no flirting going on. There was no nothing. It was all just literally a weird hangout kind of thing. But I know he planned this. So I go in, and I open the door, and there's a fucking futon that is folded down in this pool house, right? I never even seen a fucking pool. I go in the door, and there's a futon, there's a desk in the corner, there's like 3 monitors, and there's a webcam. I don't know if it was recording to this day. I really don't. The cops probably would have seized it, you know? And there's no bathroom. And I'm just like, I turned around, and that's when I kind of knew. I was like, I kind of knew at this point. And I turned around, and he'd already shut the door behind me, and he locked it, and he's like, have a seat. It was like a Chris Hansen kind of thing, and he was like, have a seat. And I sat down, and I knew what was coming, so he sat down next to me, started kissing me, and in moments like that, for anybody out there who has ever been raped, you freeze. You freeze. Your first instinct, you know, the heartbeat, it's like fight or flight. And I don't know what I was doing, but I froze, and my lips weren't moving. He was kissing me. I remember his mouth all over me, and I was just like, like I didn't know what to do. And we were down on the bed, and he was on top of me, and it happened. I was frozen the whole time until finally he entered me. And that's when, I don't know what kicked in my head. I don't, but I started fucking freaking out. And I was like, no. I was like not having it. I was trying to kick him off me. And he put his hand over my mouth, and he had his forearm down on me. And that's kind of whenever he was like, you wanted this the whole time. And he was saying all kinds of crazy things to me. And I just stopped, and I was like, okay. I just froze. I just let it happen the rest of the time. In fact, he got a couple of other things in there while he was at it, because he just knew at that point I was done. I was froze. So the reason that this is all a problem is after he was finished, I don't even want to explain that, but he's like, come on, we gotta go. And at that point, I didn't have to pee anymore, so use your imagination, okay? I didn't have to pee anymore, and I got my pants off, or my pants on, and I remember, like, I was, okay, so you know when you're cold, like, you're on the outside and you're cold and you're, like, frozen and you're shaking? Imagine being completely 100% idle. You're not moving at all, but inside of you, you were shaking from the top of your head down to your toes. And in my head, I'm like, I just got raped, I just got raped, I just got raped, and I'm thinking, don't run, don't make a big deal, just get to where you're going. So instead of having him take me to my dad's house, which was literally like 2 minutes away, I made him drive me 45 fucking minutes out to my friend's house, who was his stepson's girlfriend, my friend, remember? And the whole time through the truck on the way back, he held my hand, and my hand was like this. Like, I remember, like, he couldn't fit his face. He was trying to put it, he's like, what's wrong, what's wrong? And he acted like nothing just happened. And on the way there, she lived on a farm, so we finally get there like 40 minutes later. I don't remember what happened in the truck. I just remember at the end when we pulled in, he goes to give me a hug, and he puts his mouth on me again, and I was like, and he leaned in, and he started kissing me again, and I just literally, like, it's, do you know the thing where you don't want to cry, but the tears just come out naturally? Like, the tears are just coming, like, I could be sitting here right now, and then tears would be coming out, because... So he was just doing that, and then a tear came out, and I remember, like, because he was up against my face, I felt the tear just come out of my eye, and it went down on him, on his skin, and I remember he pulled away, and he was like, you're not going to tell anybody about this, are you? And I kept my mouth shut, and he's like, you need to go, you need to go, you need to go, and I get out of the truck, and I gently walk myself, because I had an extra key to her house, and I gently, slowly walk myself to the door. And I remember opening the door very calmly, and I shut the door, and I just ended it. I was just screaming rape. He probably could have heard me from the truck, because he waited until I got inside. And I just started screaming, rape, rape, rape. Like, he raped me. Like, really dramatic. Like, I remember making the biggest fucking deal I could over something like that. Now, the problem with this is... that's her boyfriend's stepdad, so not only did they not believe me, well, she did. She called the police immediately. The ambulance came, the police came. I'll explain in a bit, but we all go to the hospital. I remember a female cop came. She drove me down there. The whole time she held my fucking hand. So whoever you were, female cop, if you're watching from Johnstown, Pennsylvania, thank you for holding my hand. That's all I really remember, is looking down at your hand, and her hand was laced in mine, and she kept telling me, it's okay, it's okay. And I'm thinking in my head, like, is it really okay? And we get to the hospital, and I remember they called my dad. They did a rape kit on me, and I was laying on the table. And doing a rape kit, they have to swab you down there. They have to look around your body. And I remember when they were taking my clothes off, because they have to literally take them off, like, they have to have gloves, tweezers, everything. Like, you are literally evidence. Everything on your body is evidence when they do a rape kit on you. They're gently pulling my pants off with tweezers, and I remember being frozen still. My heart was racing, and they pulled my shirt up, and I look down, and all you see is a pube. And I just start screaming in the middle of the fucking hospital room, and I was screaming, and the nurse was like, she was like, shut up. Like, one of the nurses were literally like, shut up. And I looked over, and I don't ever, like, back then I would never run my mouth. Like, I would never speak out about this shit. I was like, and I was like, you shut the fuck up, bitch. Like, I was like, I just got raped. You don't know anything about this. And, like, it just got dead quiet, and everybody looked up at her, and they were like, and she was like, yeah, honey, I do. Like, she's like, I've been raped twice in my life. And it was just really sad. And it was like one of those moments. So anyway, I calmed down, and she came over, and she was being a bitch. But then she tried to get me, like, she held my arm. You're not supposed to touch. She had her gloves on, and she just held my arm. And she was like, listen to me. Like, we are here for you. And there were 2 men in the room. They're not supposed to have a man in the room when they're doing the rape kit. Nobody's giving a flying fuck about any of this. So they pick the pube off and put it in this thing. They do the swabs. I'm in pain because it was a completely dry rape. Like, imagine that, until the end when I pretty much like pissed myself. And when they're doing the rape kit and stuff, and they get done, and then they open the door because the police came in and stuff, and I had it was like these like it was like this almost, like really cheap pajamas almost. It was the same fabric, same everything with the shirt. My friend left me, like she didn't give a fuck, like she was just out. She was like, I'm sorry this happened, Sarah, you know I love you, but you know this is my boyfriend's stepfather, right? And I was like, yeah. So now we're at like 5, 6 in the morning because, you know, we're down at the hospital, and my dad shows up, my mother shows up, and they're divorced, so they don't see each other. Put me in a fucking room with them, okay? I have to tell my fucking story in front of my parents, right? My dad, who never fucking cries, is crying his eyes out. My mother's just like shaking her head, like she didn't know what the fuck to do. And you could see the guilt almost in their eyes because they never got me the help I needed when I was little, so, and this shit happens. So anyway, I told my story, I told my thing. I go home, I get released. My mom hugs me. She's like, I'm here for you. My dad, he literally puts me in his Chrysler and he locks all the doors. Like, it is literally, by this time, I think it was like 7 or 8. And we drive down to Subway. Ow. Subway offered breakfast a while ago. I don't know if they still do. They were open at like 7 a.m. So my father, like on the way home, he's like, are you hungry? Do you need anything? Like, he was literally like trying so hard to help me. And I was like, it's okay, Dad. Like, it's fine. Like, I was starting to gain back like that. You know, I was starting to relax and I was tired and I wanted to go home. Now, this is where my drug addiction really started, is in a couple minutes here. So my dad locks the Chrysler. He literally rolls the windows up and he's like, here, and he handed me a cigarette. That's what's so funny about these. He handed me he used to smoke the Camel menthols, but not the pop balls. It was like the thick wides. And he always hated because he always shared his cigarettes with me. My dad was a drug and alcohol counselor. He was the director of 2 rehabs in my area, one named Twin Lakes and the other one was Pyramid Healthcare. He ran a methadone clinic. I wasn't on methadone at that point, and he didn't really know about my drug addiction at all. Excuse me. So I just remember after the hospital, like, I don't remember anything except for being in the parking lot of Subway, smoking a cigarette with the whole car filling up with smoke, and like, my dad comes out and he has his bags and his sandwich, and he got me one, and we go home, and I remember going upstairs, and he literally like was like a watchdog. Like, he would not let me out of his fucking sight, and I'm like, Dad, it's okay. He cared so fucking much, thinking back, like, he's just like, this just happened to you. And he didn't really have anything to say except, I'm gonna kill him, I'm gonna kill him. Like, he wasn't, but so I remember laying down, and this is why all of this all correlates. I promise this all relates to one another. Like, we're 42 minutes in, so I'm laying in bed, and all of a sudden I open my eyes, and my friend's there, the girl whose boyfriend's stepdad just raped me, and she's there, and my dad let her in, I guess, and she told my dad, like, I'm her best friend, I'm here to help. Like, this is literally like right when I closed my eyes. Like, I didn't get to sleep yet at all, okay? So she comes in and she holds up this bag, right? In her family, her father had cancer, so he was prescribed a lot of Roxicet, which is basically a generic version of Oxycontin, and that's what I got addicted to after the oxys. This all relates. Tomorrow I'll get into my addiction story. So she holds up this bag, and this is the moment where my addiction just got worse, and it's full of Loratab 5s and Roxy 30s. And I never shot up, but I snorted a lot of pills, and she holds up the bag and she's like, come on, let's go. And I was like, yeah, sure, why not? And we're in the car, and she's letting me, like, she has the little dash thing out, like a magazine or a book, and I'm crushing up the pills and snorting them, and I'm getting high. And she literally, I remember, after she knew I was good and high, we get to her house, the 40 minutes fucking way again, where I had just cried rape a couple hours earlier. We walk in the door, and her boyfriend's there, and he's sitting there with his hands in his head, and he looks at me, and he says, my dad, he called him his dad, he's like, my dad's gonna go away for the rest of his fucking life if you don't do something about it. It wasn't, I'm sorry for what happened to you. Oh, my friend didn't even say it either. It's not, I'm sorry this happened to you. It's not, what happened and how could this happen? It's, my dad's going away for the rest of his fucking life if you don't do something about this. So me, good and high and happy, my self-esteem issues going through this whole video, my problems, things like that. I tell them, well, I won't, but he raped me. He raped me. Something needs to happen. People need to know. And they're like, no. They're like, are you sure you didn't want it because you're a whore, basically? Because, you know what I mean? I told you guys about how I would always go looking, so that reputation of sleeping with other people came back on me like I wanted it. And that's not true, and that hurt me even worse, and I didn't want them to think that I did, because I froze, and that's what I told them. I was like, I froze, and they're like, well, shouldn't you, or they were like, well, shouldn't you have been kicking yourself off? And I was like, well, yeah, once he entered me, I did. And like, it's like I was being fucking interrogated by the stepson of my rapist, who I thought was also my friend. And so finally, I'm literally high as a kite, and they were like, just go up, he's up there now. I don't know how they knew he was up there now if somebody wasn't fucking texting or calling. And they were like, can we just drive you up there to please talk to the cop? And I'm thinking in my head, sure, like, I'm literally high at this point. I don't want to disappoint my fucking friends. Forget the fact that I'm literally, like, open wounded down there, and I literally, like, we get to the police station, and I am so high. I remember looking in the mirror, in the thing, I was like, do you think they'll know that I'm high? And they're like, no, you're fine. My pupils were the size of, like, fucking the smallest atom in the world. Like, they were like non-existent. My eyes were glazed. I hadn't slept. I hadn't even fucking showered yet. I go in the police station, and I'll never forget that cop's name, Kevin Godlip, who put me in the room with the man who raped me, which is illegal as all can be. So Detective Kevin Godlip put me in the room with my rapist, and I will never, ever, ever forget sitting there waiting for the other detective to come in, which is also illegal. I look over at my rapist, and he looks at me, and then we both look at the detective, and it was literally like a moment that stands so clear in my mind to this day. And Detective Kevin looks at me and says, well, sweetie, if I had a beautiful girl like you with me, I would have probably done the same thing. So, in my head, I don't know what the fuck, it wasn't clicking with me. It wasn't clicking with me. So I look over at the rapist, who's not even, who is literally separated by like this size, like, end table with a little flower thing on the fucking thing. And I look at my rapist, and he looks at me, he's like, why are you doing this to me? And then I have the cop like, tell your story, why are you here? And I apologize to him. I look over to him and I say, I'm so sorry this happened. I don't know why I did that. And I don't remember anything really from there on out besides standing in the open room with all the tables and the metal chairs against the tables, you know, those plastic things. It was like an open room. He's gone, he was out of the room, and they're like, so you want to drop the charges? And I was like, yeah, because the detective also said, you're not going to have a case. You're not going to have a case because you didn't fight back right away. You're not going to have a case because because you're 18 years old. Which, by the way, it's my fucking birthday this whole time. Like, I mean, fuck that I'm... Okay, so anyway. Ouch. Yeah, so I literally drop the charges, and then I leave, and my present is a big bag of Roxy's. Happy birthday. Happy birthday to me, right? So we go back to her house, and he's all happy, and he's like, thanks a lot. He's like, I completely understand sometimes we just get scared because I wouldn't want the reputation of fucking an old man too. And like, they're just blatantly talking to me like this. These are my best fucking friends. I get a bag of Roxy's, so my drug addiction already that's slowly forming just gets better. And I think these are really good friends. They just saved me from a lot of humiliation and embarrassment because they were also saying, you don't have a case. You don't have a case. Then to come to find out, I think it was 2 weeks later, my rape kit came back, and it was positive. In fact, it was so positive, and the evidence with the blood on my underwear and things like that were so relevant that, oh, I had a case. So at this point, my parents were like asking, they're like, yeah, so when is this, they're looking into it, everything like that, and they're like, she dropped the charges. And my parents went fucking nuts. They were like, what? Like, and my mother, I remember, she from then on started sending like thank you notes or I'm sorry notes. I'm sorry. They were, I remember they were Hallmark cards. My mom literally was so upset that I dropped the charges. She didn't know what to do. So for that week after, while we tried to put the charges back on, I'll explain in a minute, she would always go to Walmart and like the Dollar General and buy Hallmark cards that said I'm sorry and send it to his wife. And so now the town is starting to find out of what he did, and a lot of people were on my side. Now social media really wasn't that big back then. It was all MySpace kind of. So it wasn't really talked about there. There wasn't really any articles, but the word was that, and I was even told by my friend whose son or whatever, or boyfriend was stepson, that his wife didn't do anything. His wife stood up for him, and his kids, the Heim kids now, man, they do not like me. Yeah, his construction company went under. I believe he still has it now, Bob's. We tried to put the charges back on, but ultimately it wasn't accepted as a case because then a real lawyer came in and they were like, look, you dropped the charges, you looked high as a kite. When they did the drug test after, though, I had nothing in my system, so I was grateful for that. I didn't do anything. I was completely sober when it happened, and the fact that it was all put on me, like I did something wrong, right? So time goes past, and my mom keeps sending these cards. The rape gets by. My mom did try to get me counseling. I remember going to victim services downtown, and I was literally like, I am not like, there was like this girl younger than me in there. I was like 18, she's like 16. She's like, I'm just a, what do you call it? Like a tech counselor, like the tech. And she's like, I'm just the tech counselor. She's like, so tell me what happened. I'm like, I am out. I remember leaving. I was walking down in Ferndale. It was Ferndale, PA, like where I was, and I was just walking near the football field. I'm like, Mom, can you come get me? This is not working. So it was honestly forgotten about after that. Like, nobody really talked about it anymore. There was no case. We decided not to keep pursuing it. It would have went to trial. I didn't want to see him anymore. I didn't want to hear it anymore. Those friends that I thought were my friends, they actually, I guess one day come to find out that it was called Happy Rape Day. Every birthday I had after that, they would call it Happy Rape Day. So, incredible, right? Good friends. My drug addiction got worse over the years, for about 3 years, yeah, right, like, altogether, maybe a year and a half, 2 years after that, was just hell. But all of that, really didn't add to the molestation I suffered from when I was younger. It really just added on to it, you know what I mean? So you talk about not having an orgasm then. I didn't have an orgasm at all. In fact, I wouldn't take off my clothes anymore. I stopped sleeping with people. I just didn't want anything. My boyfriend at the time that I got raped, Kevin, incredible human being. If you're watching this right now, I love you with all of my heart. You know I do. He's incredible. He helped me through it all. He's been there through it all, through all the cheating and all the drugs and all the fucking shit. But after that happened, Kevin and I really didn't have sex anymore. I didn't really sleep with anybody anymore after that. And then I met Victor because I was fed up with the drug addiction. And Victor and I got together, long story. And Victor didn't see me naked until the birth of my son, Odin. We would always sleep together with the lights off. It never was good for me. I never truly understood what sex was up until about, I think it was my first real orgasm from the time I was a little girl. And I say little girl because I was a little girl when I was exposed to all this stuff. It was my very, very first orgasm. It was probably about 6 months ago. I'm thinking months. Like I said, the timeline's off, but it's still, holy shit, it's still around that time. So literally, I'm over here like finally opening up to my husband after 6 years and finally starting enjoying sex. And the only reason for that is it's like you still have that need and you still have that want to have sex, but it's like the self-esteem issue will always eat at you, and the wants that you wanted from when you were younger are always still with you, and then you realize you were raped and you constantly tell yourself in your head, did I want it? Did I want this? And then you finally realize that yes, maybe it was fucking rape. And yes, maybe you did experience some severe fucking trauma. And then you start realizing, okay, maybe I can heal from that. And you start growing up and you're like, okay, at 26 years old, I'm finally just fucking starting to enjoy sex, because my entire fucking life from like when I was like 9, 10 years old has been nothing but abuse and fucking emotional, mental fucking trauma that has completely destroyed me inside. That the reason I wear makeup all the time isn't for myself, it's for everybody else, because I'm so tired of being called ugly. And no, this is not a pity party video. No, this is not a cry for help. It's trying to explain to you guys that instead of fucking going every single day thinking, okay, I was molested, but it's not a big deal. It's a big fucking deal, and you need to tell somebody about it, and you need to get help, and you need to understand that there are bad things that come out of it, but ultimately, I regret almost every single fucking day of my life not asking somebody for help. I regret sleeping with all the men and the women that I did when I was younger for validation for myself, because I always felt ugly, and I always felt that the only way that I could be truly loved is to have a man or a woman take advantage of me. I lived my life like this up until about 6, 4, 3, 1, 2 days ago, I don't know, in that period, without enjoying my sexual relationships. I literally was a fucking bag of bones for people. I have had no, I'm starting to finally, but I've had no respect for myself, and this is why I literally am so fucking adamant about helping people who have been raped or molested, because you don't want to ever fucking feel in your head like you did something wrong or you egged it on or this and that. No means no. It is so fucking simple. It is such a simple concept. I don't know why we are all so obsessed with fucking making it out to be like there are rules or justifications. Rape is rape, molestation is molestation, assault is assault, and no means no. It's so simple, you guys. Please don't be like me. Please tell somebody if you are being molested or you are being touched. You know, it's just a fucking instinct that people have inside them. You know when something is wrong, and you know, you will suffer. You will suffer. Please just tell somebody. Don't suffer like I did, please. I am 26 years old, and I have just recently started to enjoy having sex and enjoying myself. And still, every time I have sex, the thought of when I was a little girl flourishes my mind every single fucking time. And as much as I block it out and realize that my husband loves me and this and that and blah, 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 it's always going to be with me. And I guarantee if I would have just fucking asked somebody for help, it would have been different. So, I'm sorry this video is 58 minutes long. I gotta go. I want to go smoke a cigarette with my awesome jacket. It says Marlboro cigarettes on it. And then on the back it says Smoking Kills. But, honestly, it is okay of what happened to you or what is happening to you in regards to it's not your fucking fault. It is not your fault. It is not, don't feel ashamed for having feelings like I did when I was younger. Don't fucking be ashamed. Ask for help. Please. Please ask for help. It has destroyed my life and I suffer with it every single day. Half of the day, all my mind is focused on still, which I've worked on getting rid of these thoughts, is having sex with my husband, or what can I do to sexually please my husband. And then I realize I'm not even feeling good thinking about this. I just have the whole thought in my head that this is not, this is what love is, but then the other half of me that has finally started to realize this is not what love is. And my husband has taught me that there is a difference, very much a difference, and he has given 6 years of his time to making sure that I don't feel like that is the only way to show love, and I'm very grateful for that. My husband and I are currently going through like kind of a separation kind of thing. That's a whole different video. If you want to hear a little bit about it, watch my tapping video. Everything's fine though with that. Please don't be worried. We still live together. We always will. We're best friends. We love each other. But if I could thank anybody in this fucking world, it would be my husband for showing me that sex is something to be enjoyed. Sex is not something to give somebody without actually wanting it. Sex is not the only form of showing love on this planet, and I don't want you guys to feel that way either. I love you guys, and thank you for being there. Bye.